go to this story here about RFK Jr. since we've been talking about electoral politics, 2024 election, and the Democratic Party and how they treat these candidates that they do not want. RFK Jr. is now talking about the rigged system with the DNC and what they're doing to him. I first want to get started with this particular clip here. He says the DNC has totally rigged the system. Let's start off with this ad here, and then I'm going to get into the video clip where he explains to you what they're doing to him now.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here. After 4 months of crisscrossing the country and speaking to thousands of Americans from all walks of life, I've come to understand that what our campaign really is the spearhead of a massive populist awakening. You see, our nation's most serious problems come from a single source: the entrenched corporate political elite. Government agencies, Congress, the defense industry, Wall Street, the media, big tech, big pharma, big ag, and pretty much big everything have a death grip on our democracy. And there's only one thing that can break that grip. And no, it's not me. It's you, the people.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Not me, you.
Populist movement that unites left and right, black and white, rural and urban, young and old. We can't just wait around for the Washington establishment to change their minds. We can't expect Wall Street to stop strip mining the middle class of its equity and its wealth. We can't expect the military-industrial complex to promote peace, or the censorship big tech complex to promote freedom or freedom of speech. We need to do it ourselves. We have to take back power in this country for the people. Let me add one more item to the list of entrenched institutions, the Democratic National Committee. In an honest primary, the candidate with the most votes would be the nominee, right? But the DNC has imposed delicate rules that make it nearly impossible for an insurgent candidate to win.
He's talking about super delegates, but we'll get into more of that.
It has totally rigged the system.
Very early on, back in February, we passed a resolution unanimously within the DNC that we are all riding with Biden and Kamala Harris.
But you know what? Neither the DNC nor anyone else is going to stop us. President Biden.
That's not true, but let me continue.
His billion-dollar war chest is not a match for people power ultimately.
It is a match for people power ultimately, because you know what? We had that people power with Bernie Sanders campaigns, particularly the last one in 2020. We had a lot of people power. None of that mattered because none of us people that were part of that power were in charge of super delegates. Moving on, though.
That's why we're opening field offices in all 50 states. My campaign will be funded by millions of small donations from people who want to heal this nation.
Don't that sound familiar? Don't this all sound familiar to you guys? Small donations from the people. Remember that?
Now's a great time to make a donation to my campaign. Even $5 or $10 contributes to our momentum. Thank you, everyone, and God bless you. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now.
Well, that was that. And then recently, something changed. Oh, we are missing a clip here. Hold on. Something changed recently in reference to the DNC and RFK Jr. I'm trying to find that video. Let me see something here. Oh, I gotta grab it. I'm sorry. Sorry, Eric. I messed up on that one. I forgot to grab the thing. There it is. It's okay. I found it. Yeah. Okay, I got it. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, here is that video clip of RFK Jr. explaining what the DNC is doing now. So let's go ahead and get into this. I told you guys they're sneaky. They're already starting.
It's pretty clear that the DNC does not want a primary. They 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 want a primary. I don't want to say that they want a coronation, but that's, I think that that's a fair way to put it, actually. They're doing, they're essentially, they're fixing the process so that it makes it almost impossible to have democracy function. They're effectively disenfranchising the Democratic voters from having any choice in who becomes president or who becomes the Democratic nominee. So two of the things they've done to date is they've moved the Iowa primary. They've made rules that if anybody campaigns in Iowa or any candidate sets foot in the state of Iowa or sets foot in the state of New Hampshire, then none of the votes that are cast for that candidate will be tallied. In other words,
you guys hear this, right? Let's go back just a little bit. I want to make it very clear what they're doing in reference to Iowa and New Hampshire. I told you guys, you cannot trust these mofos.
The Iowa primary, they've made rules that if anybody campaigns in Iowa or any candidate sets foot in the state of Iowa or sets foot in the state of New Hampshire, then none of the votes that are cast for that candidate will be tallied. In other words, any delegate that I win in New Hampshire or Iowa would go instead to the president.
That's pretty cruddy, don't you think? So they have made this new rule. Oh, look, an extra tab open. Sorry. They made a new rule in reference to Iowa and New Hampshire that technically any delegate that he would get, and I'm assuming this would apply to Marianne as well, in Iowa or New Hampshire, when tallied, would go to Joe Biden. What I tell you, people, what I've been telling you all this time, from day one, this is why I said you can't do it in the Democratic Party. And I hate to be I told you so. I hate to be that person, but I've been saying this from the very beginning when he announced his campaign. I said the same thing in reference to Marianne Williamson. Some people were mad at me for saying those things, but yet here we are. Make sure you pass on this information, guys. I'm not on Twitter anymore now. Maybe I'll go back to Twitter tonight. I don't know. But make sure you guys pass this on to people on Twitter so they know. They're already doing it, because remember, New Hampshire and Iowa are no longer the first states anymore. They have moved up South Carolina. South Carolina is now the first state, which is the state that really helped put Joe Biden over in reference to 2020 election, right? So in New Hampshire and Iowa, that means that people like Marianne and RFK Jr. fare a better chance in those states, right? They've been campaigning there. I know he's been campaigning in New Hampshire pretty heavily. That's my neighbor to the north. But this is all they got to do. This is all they got to do and say, okay, we just changed the rules. Let's go on. There's more. We'll get into the whole DNC fraud lawsuit again, too. I told you this is what they do.
And now they're trying to change it so that if I campaign in New Hampshire, that none of the votes cast for me in Georgia will count. And that's significant because it's hard to win the nomination without Georgia.
And now they're adding on the state of Georgia as well, folks. Like, I don't know what to say except for this. RFK Jr., I tried to tell you from the very get-go, it's rigged. Dennis Kucinich, who is RFK Jr.'s campaign manager, already knew this. So what is this all for? He tell you he not running third party, he not running independent. They already doing the rigging now. So what's it all for, peeps? Let me continue.
What is the logic?
Well, they're rigging it so that it, effectively, we're looking at the tabulations now that look like if you add up all the super delegates that they control and all of the automatic delegates that just go to the party, and go to the president, I would have to win almost 80% of all of the states in order to beat President Biden, even if he only wins 20%.
This is such a screwed up system. So they're basically saying that RFK Jr., and this would apply to Marion too, they would now have to win 80% in these states in order to beat Joe Biden. Even if Joe Biden that's the thing. Did you see this? This is that super majority. So instead of saying like 50% or 51%, that kind of thing, he would have to get 80%. How's that going to happen? This is done on purpose.
And yet you continue on. So what is your strategy then in light of this for defeating President Biden?
These rules will not be finalized until September 14th, and we've written the DNC protesting. I mean, there's some really wild things that they're now considering, including forcing me to actually pay for the primaries. And their logic is that they don't need a primary because they already have a candidate, and therefore
pay. So they're saying they're trying to make it so that they may actually force him to pay for the primary, because they're saying they don't need a primary because they already have a candidate, which is Joe Biden. So basically what the DNC, what they are doing is they are making it so that nobody can run against Joe Biden within the Democratic Party. They're making it more difficult to run They're making it more difficult to run against Joe Biden within the Democratic Party. Let me tell you something, okay? I've seen some things in my day. I saw the things that in reference to the Bernie Sanders campaigns, everything with Donna Brazile and everything with, what's her name? Debbie? Yeah, Debbie Wiseman Schultz. We went over all of that. I was seeing some things, but this is a new one for me. They come up with all kinds of stuff. Remember, the DNC is a corporation. We'll get into that in just a second. Let them continue.
I'm costing them all this money, and that money should be paid for by me and, maybe Marianne Williamson. So it's not, it's a process that is rigged. And we live at a time in American history when a lot of Americans think that democracy is broken, that the system, the political system is rigged, and that there's not really any democracy. And unfortunately, the DNC is taking a lot of steps that confirm that outlook.
We told you. Even listen to him now. He's like, a lot of Americans think that it's rigged. He's still saying think. It is rigged. He knows this. Dennis Kucinich, your campaign manager, also knows this. I hate to say it, but if he would have listened to some of us who have been saying this from the very fucking get-go, this is why you can't run through the Democratic Party. They can change the rules at any time. They can even change the rules again next year. They don't even have to follow their own charter. That was ruled in the court by a federal judge. So you got to understand, people. I hate to say it, RFK Jr., and I would honestly feel more sorry for you if you weren't sitting up here deliberately trying to pretend like you had not been forewarned about this system, and you said that you're going to trust in the system. And we said you cannot trust in this system, and you knew damn well, coming from the Bernie Sanders campaigns, all that stuff that happened with Bernie, everybody put all this shit on the table for you. Dennis Kucinich know this game is rigged. That's why he's not in Congress anymore. They ripped him out. They redrew his district to kick his ass out. They'll do whatever they want. But no, we tried to say these things to RFK Jr. He's like, well, people say it's rigged. I don't think it's rigged. And I was like, yes, it is. And I think he did know. And so you got to ask yourself, what is this? A publicity campaign? What is it, people? Why you think people kept asking you, will you split from the party and run third party independent? No, I'm a Democrat to my core. And I'm like, dude, they don't want you. They don't want you in this party. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not trying to go to a party that I'm not wanted to be at. I'm not trying to be there. Let me let them finish. I'm going to show you something else.
The decision holds for the current, sort of primary structure with the DNC. What is the route to victory for you against President Biden?
Oh, if the DNC is going to is going to rig it so that it is simply impossible for anybody to challenge President Biden, then, I need to look at other alternatives. Because
you ain't been thinking about this shit all the time? Like, this is what... Listen to what he's saying. Listen to the if part. That's the part that cracks me up. Hold on. This has got to be a joke to me.
It's President Biden.
Oh, if the DNC is going to is going to rig it so that it.
Notice he said if. After everything he just told you about them changing the rules in those states, he's still saying if.
It is simply impossible for anybody to challenge President Biden, then, I need to look at other alternatives, because I can't go back to the people support me and to my donors and say, I'm in this to make a point. I need to show them a road to victory.
What kind of
It's why I don't donate to politicians. No, Bernie was the last one for me, boo. Yeah, but you're right about that one. You can't go back to the people who donated money to you being like, yeah, I don't know if we're going to...
alternatives would you be exploring, Mr. Kennedy?
Well, I don't know exactly, because I want to see what the DNC does. I want to see.
Why would you wait and see what the DNC does before you come up with a plan B? It's just like, why would you not have a backup plan? I used to think everybody had backup plans in life, right? Like, I used to have backup plans, especially like when I first graduated college and I was job hunting. I'm like, all right, if I don't get this, I'm going to this interview. If I don't get this gig, I always got this other interview scheduled next week. And I always had some kind of plan B in my life. So I thought everybody kind of had a plan. As I got older, I realized, no. Some people really don't have no backup plans. But you would think if you running for office and you out here asking people for money, and when we told you early on they was going to rig this game against you, you would think you would have a backup plan. When he's like, I need to look at other alternatives, that shit should have been done. What is it? What is this? Why you think all this time, every interview, are you going to split from the party? Are you going to run independent? Are you going to do this? Why do you think people asking this question? I can't go back to the people that was no, you wanted to run through the Democratic Party. You didn't want to run a mean-spirited campaign against Joe Biden. Miss me with all that one. Because he sure as hell would run a mean one against you. Very interesting. So we'll go back to this part and let him finish here.
I'm in this to make a point. I need to show them a road to victory.
What kind of alternatives would you be exploring, Mr. Kennedy?
Well, I don't know exactly, because I want to see what the DNC does. I want to see if they make it if they make it a fair contest. And I'm not asking that it be 100% fair. But I'm asking that there at least be, a chance that it be plausible for somebody else to win other than their, chosen anointed candidate.
Now I want to point something out to you. He said he's not asking for it to be 100% fair. Why is that? It should be 100% fair. Why would you not ask for it to be 100% fair? Now I want to show you something, because, we try to tell people about this stuff. I had this conversation a while back with the Becks. Now, the Becks, meet the Becks. The Becks are attorneys They are the attorneys that filed the DNC fraud lawsuit. Listen to what the Becks had to say. Listen to this.
The documents that had been dropped by Guccifer 2.0 and how we could, what they meant and how we could plead a legal theory on behalf of the hundreds and then thousands of people that were calling our office and emailing us saying, this is such BS, this rigging, is there anything, that we can do? And by the way, this is even before the convention started. Okay, I want to make that very clear. I think it's important that people understand that we actually got the lawsuit off the ground, before, Philadelphia happened and the convention was formally given to Hillary Clinton. We had already had that lawsuit on file, and our aim was not to reverse the results or, all these Trump lawsuits try to do, but we were trying to get the money back for the people that had contacted us because we saw this as a huge monetary fraud to the.
So that's what I wanted you guys to hear. When the Becks filed the DNC fraud lawsuit, they weren't even trying to get them to overturn the results. They just wanted to get people's money back. The people, there were homeless people, poor people, working class people that donated to Bernie Sanders' campaign. They were trying to get those people their money back, those small dollar donations. So just FYI.
The tune of $220 million that went to the Bernie Sanders campaign and then into the Democratic Party ecosystem. That was just, we had homeless people who were our clients, okay, that were reaching into their pockets. That's how awful this thing was, okay? Yep. And in retrospect, it was a very traumatic experience, I think, for a lot of people. It certainly, changed our lives. But I hope some lessons were learned from it, and I hope
don't donate.
Right, but I hope that the record that we created is of some use to people going forward, especially in these times, as you have candidates like Robert Kennedy and Marion Wilson coming around with their hand out, wanting you to reach into your pocket as, inflation is on the rise and the economy is going into the shitter. They want you to send your money to their enterprises. And, my advice as, a fellow citizen and as a lawyer and as somebody who has litigated this issue extensively is, you can do what you want with your money, but just be aware that this process is 100% fake. So don't get angry, and certainly don't call our office asking to file a lawsuit, because we're not doing anything close to that ever again.
So there you go. Now, I want to show you what was said at the DNC fraud lawsuit. And this is what I've been trying to say for the longest time. And shout out to Nico House, because Nico House was the one that contacted the Becks and asked them to help. Listen to this. This is the statement here from the DNC's attorney, which is Bruce Spiva. Everybody need to see this. This was what was decided at the court. The judge ruled in favor of the DNC, and here's the reasons why. There is no such thing as a Democrat. The DNC just encourages people to vote for the Democratic Party. No one has any right to expect a fair election. If the DNC wishes to select a candidate in the primaries instead of a free election process, that is their right. Donating money to Bernie Sanders doesn't mean you thought that money was going to assist him to win the primary. You have no right to think the DNC has obligated to follow their own charter and internal policies about elections. And 4, Discussion of or any disputes with the DNC do not belong in a transparent process in a court of law. The DNC is a private association, which should never be asked to engage in the discovery process or have to reveal any of its internal workings or strategies should they decide to select a candidate rather than allow a fair election of a candidate. See, this is the piece that, and I wish this would circulate even more on social media, right? But this piece right here, no one has any right to an expectation of a fair election. If the DNC wishes to select a candidate in the primaries instead of a free election process, that is their right. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. And that's pretty much what they've said to RFK. That's why when he said that they were telling them that basically they're not going to have a primary because they already have their candidate, this is what they're doing right now. That's why I tell people don't donate money. And this is why I don't want people running through the Democratic Party. But that's that. Thank you, Wired TARDIS. Should be the opposite. Candidates that don't step foot within a state don't qualify for votes at that state's primary/caucus. That's a good point. Because Joe Biden hasn't been there. From what I heard so far, he hasn't been to either one of those states.